Cocktails and Comics, activate! Shape up, New Mutants, Demon Bear Saga! Oh, God, this is a lot of vodka.
Hello, comic fam, and welcome to Cocktails and Comics, where we drink tasty beverages while discussing really cool comics. Tonight, we have a treat for you. We have New Mutants, the Demon Bear Saga. Quite arguably, the only must-read of the New Mutants from the 80s. Volume 1 run. All right, so, also, let's throw this in. The movie will be based on this. All right, so what happens... All right, so what happens when a group of teen mutants are trapped in a hospital during a snowstorm without adult supervision as one of their comrades lies dying after what appears to be a bear attack? The team must face their own demons as they rush to find out what really happened to their teammate and try to find out enough information to figure what to do to save her life. Hello, gentlemen. How's it going tonight? All right.
Going.
Cool.
Hot.
Nice. So I have Justin with me. What's up, Justin? And we got Nick. Bang, bang. And I have Mr. Eric with me. Sweet.
We need to figure out a tooth gleam for me when I do the finger guns. Work on that.
Gling, gling. All right. Got to get into Final Cut for that. All right, gentlemen. So we all know by this point what the first question of the night is. What are we drinking? Mr. Eric? Boom. Not G&T.
No, not tonight. Yeah, I figured I needed something a little off kilter, so I went with peanut butter whiskey.
Nice.
Is it good?
And if he starts...
It's surprising. When I first heard about this, I was like, that's the biggest bullshit I've ever heard of. And then I tasted it. I'm like, I'm going to drink the whole fucking bottle.
Yeah, Pat McAfee was plugging it. I haven't tried it yet.
Yeah, it's tasty.
So when Eric says off kilter, by the end of the night, he'll be like, literally off kilter.
Daddy wants to play.
All right. Hey, Nicholas, what are we drinking?
Just a vodka soda. It's too hot. I can't do whiskey. It's
All
too
right.
hot. And it's too late for a margarita.
And Mr. Justin?
We got some Basil Hayden's Kentucky bourbon.
Always bringing the straight, legit shit. All right. And guys, I just got a beer, a nice classic Lagunitas Passion Grass. Actually, don't know how long this has been in my fridge, but it still tastes delicious. All right, guys. So by now we know the modus operandi. So let's get right into it. Let's talk about the writing style. We're going to start with Nick tonight. Nick, what do you think about the writing of Mr. Chris Claremont?
I think it was definitely he made it out like they were kids. You could tell it's a young team. They're somewhat immature, figuring things out. But at the end, it kind of tied itself together nicely. My favorite part was that the cops just became Native Americans. No reason at all. No reason with the story.
That is definitely a topic to discuss. All right. Justin, why don't you let us know what you think?
I loved it because it was very 80s. It's very old school, nostalgic comic book writing. You're getting a lot of internal monologue, and it just really breaks down to what you expect from one of these comics from that era. It was well-rounded. I enjoyed all the characters and everything in it. And for me, personally, like I said the last time, I haven't really been exposed to a lot of Marvel growing up. So for me, it was very relieving. I fell right into this one.
Yep, I agree 100%. Definitely 80s style. Definitely felt like a younger team than the X-Men. You got a team with a lot of bravado. You got a team with a lot of self-doubt, kind of things that the teenage crew would go through. Lastly, but not least, we've got our, I would say, New Mutants aficionado here, Mr. Eric Webb. Can you please enlighten us? Yes. please enlighten us on Chris Claremont and his writing.
I don't know if there's anything to enlighten, but I feel like this is him at like this is Claremont at his most Claremontiest. I feel like it's just like the prose is purple. He's chewing the scenery with all this stuff. The angst is through the roof, and I think like he hit his stride. I think here in terms of that general trope that they have of taking like, here are the kids of this organization, the ones that are in training but not really supposed to be X-Men, but wind up kind of always doing X-Men light things. But it started off really super like sort of light bubblegummy, like it was like they were like the goofy kids who just went off and had shenanigans, and then like things got a little dark right before this kicked off because they're like in limbo, and Ilyana's like coming out as being a demon and all this stuff, and all of a sudden it's just like, boom, we're hearing like a horror story, and like changed the game and changed sort of the trajectory of this book entirely, and all of a sudden it became all these books about kids become like the super dark, super scary ones, like this and Power Pack that Louis Simonson was writing and all that stuff. Like all of a sudden it's like the shit got real when the kids were involved, and nowhere more so than this. And I think that this direction like was so sort of formative for me reading it when I was younger. It was like, oh, because you saw this stuff in like Vertigo and Sandman and everything like that, but to see it in a Marvel book, you're like, oh, what is this shit? Like,
right. No, totally. And yeah, damn, that Demon Bear would have got away with it if it weren't for those darn kids. But
you wrote that ahead of time, didn't you?
Yes. Watch as I go through this door and come back through. All right, guys. That was all really insightful. Eric, great insight. Let's move on to art style. Justin, can I get you to lead us off on the art style of Mr. Sienkiewicz? And don't try spelling that 3 times fast.
No, Sienkiewicz he did an awesome job with it. It is so just not what you expect. It's just not clean artwork that you would expect from like an X-Men novel, and it fits well with the story because the story really takes that dark twist on you where you feel like you're in it. It's really encompassing throughout the whole thing where you're reading it, you're like, holy shit, this is pretty dark.
Yeah, totally. And I think it really worked out that this became a horror book when it did, because it basically became a horror book when Sienkiewicz jumped on it, like started doing the artwork. So, I mean, before that you had Buchik, I think, and or was it Sal Buscema, and
sure.
And Bob McLeod was the
original.
So yeah, he jumped on it, and you had all your art, you had your house style guys, and then you get Sienkiewicz, who's like something totally new. Yeah, new, fits with the horror theme. Nick, what are your thoughts?
Well, to be honest, in the beginning, I kind of didn't like it. Again, I started reading comics in the 2010, so I guess I started with the modern story, but it kind of grew at me at the end when the team started fighting the bear, and then they went into the dream, the other, whatever it is, the other dimension, right. And you saw like the demons, and they looked like, it kind of got like a little trippy and psychedelic, and I kind of dug that.
Yeah, it's totally trippy. And I know, guys, I said I wouldn't show off some stuff, but I'm just going to show off my Sienkiewicz print right here. Autographed, actually, by Sienkiewicz.
Do I need to go break out my Venom 26 secret cover? I don't think so.
So we're talking about New Mutants.
No, you don't.
Right? And yeah, again, another Sienkiewicz autograph. Sorry, guys.
And here it is. Cuppy told me that I didn't need to go grab my New Mutants stuff to show off.
Yeah, because I had you covered.
Pull your thunder.
And I did. But don't worry, that's why I'm letting him go last again. So he gets all that thunder. And here's some Sienkiewicz house style, almost. But yes. All right. So, Mr. Eric, why don't you once again, hit us with that thunder?
Really
down under.
Overselling it, I feel.
I know.
No, but I mean, like Sienkiewicz, I think is, hands down, I think probably my favorite artist for comic books, and so much of it is because, again, just blowing kids' minds in the 80s, because this is not what you expect from a Marvel superhero book. This everything, the form breaks down, the panels don't exist any longer, and he really understands the fact that in that horror genre, what you don't see is more terrifying than what you do see. So you never see the full demon bear in any frame. It's always pieces, and everything is disjointed and surreal, and he creates such an amazing sense of claustrophobia and isolation throughout the course of the story. And it's just in his design work. Every page is its own sort of masterpiece of layout, and it's not just one individual image. It's the entire form of it becomes its own piece of art, and it's just gorgeous. And I think he maintains this incredible sense of abstraction and surreality, but also has extraordinarily realistic facial expressions. So you're always connected to the characters still, even though they're in this fucking wackadoo world that everything is terrifying and can't trust anything. So I think that tension between like this grounded facial reality and this surreal landscape is just such a wonderful dichotomy that I really get sucked into with this story. And it's a fucking bear. Like at the end of the day, so like it's a bear. Like sure, bears are scary. I don't want to run into one in the woods. But I'm like, it's a demon bear. It's fucking terrifying. Like it's just all like 10-foot talons and like teeth and crazy eyes out of darkness. And so yeah, I feel like it warms up. Like you see sort of him and Chris coming together over the course of this arc. Like at the beginning, they're like a little at odds. You know, the art doesn't quite match with the story necessarily all the time, and so they're not fully simpatico. And then by the end, it's just fucking gangbusters. Like they are just off and running, and then you see the rest of their run together. It's fantastic.
Yeah, no, totally awesome. And yeah, like you said, there's definitely like a little tension at first between the artwork, but yeah, totally. By the end of it, like you said, it jives. And I think as you read it, you're kind of like, I'm not quite getting it with that first issue 18. You're like,
it's like because it's a. I feel like we talked about this before, but it was like it's again like 3-act structure. Like it's like 18 is just all set up. Mm-hmm. It's all character work. It's all sort of setting up the dynamics and the exposition that's necessary. 19 is getting us into the main conflict, and then they just fucking turn the screws with 20, where it's just like, whoops, we're in a different reality and shit's going down.
Right. And yeah, I think the artwork really works too once you're in 20, because that's when you get brought into the Demon Bears world. Right. And then it's like,
and everything's like these like garish colors, and then like the real world's just this weird monochromatic, like it's all just like flat blue or flat red, and yeah.
Yeah, and to go back a little bit too, I like the point you brought up about the facial expressions, because I noticed that now. Like, yeah, it really helped to sell the story, even though the artwork wasn't quite realist or house style. The facial expressions totally sold that these were actual characters in peril, or whatever the situation was. And yeah, that some artists will just do a scene and just give you body structure, right? And that is supposed to lead you to what's happening, but Sienkiewicz takes the time to draw out the face and actually give you something in terms of what's happening with them. So,
I want to say one thing. One of the panels that really like stuck out to me was in issue 20, like page 11. It was when Magma is getting her soul taken over by the bear, and you saw the transition of her go from Magma into full powers. She became humanized. And then as soon as you saw her become that kind of that demon from the bear's powers, it was just a complete deterioration of her as a human being. And I was like, that is so cool.
Yeah, that was pretty awesome. Nick, you have anything to add about this difference in styles coming together, meshing together for this?
I like that they kept it like the writing in terms of they were still kids. Like they were still like figuring things out, figuring out teamwork. And then the art just went off the walls in the issue 20. It's just balls to the walls. And like the white background kind of like offset everything to make the actual art pop in the comics. So generally, like when I read like a digital, it's black around, you know what I mean? So it was a shock to me.
Yeah. I think Sienkiewicz it was definitely different for its time. And I think even today, you kind of, it still kind of comes across as a little bit different, but I think we're more accepting of it. I think like the only thing I can think of that's kind of in that same vein recently was like Silver Surfer Black with Trad Moore when he did like the psyche funkadelic artwork around that Donny Cates story. But yeah, anybody else?
Well, you know what, and you kind of see that style kind of transcend into different companies. Like, you know, you get a lot of Vertigo that comes out with a lot of these comics that has that kind of Sienkiewicz kind of like take on it, where they have that rough style where it's not the glossy house style that you're used to. And I mean, like you guys said, like this was a pinnacle of that transition of, hey, we can go outside the box a little bit and still be successful.
Yeah,
and tell superhero stories with it.
Oh yeah,
it's not just like, here's my like indie about the human condition. It's like, these are fucking kids with superpowers, and we're still giving it to you this way. It's bonkers.
I mean, yeah, it totally worked. It ends up working out really well. That you can have this outside the box artist, and as Eric and everybody here mentioned, still tell a superhero story. Really cool. All right. I think we covered the art and the writing pretty extensively. So let's move on to just our overall impression of this X team. For those who don't know, New Mutants was the first offshoot of the X-Men title. So this is kind of like the first, I don't know. I said offshoot. We'll stay with offshoot. Yeah, spinoff. There we go. That's the word I was looking for. Mr. Eric coming in clutch again. So let's lead it off with you. What do you think of this iteration of an X team, mutant team?
Yeah, I mean, it's still the crew that's sort of finding their footing in terms of how they work as a team. And I think that Claremont puts that into pretty great relief. Like, they find out that the Demon Bear is scared of Danny. That's like its greatest fear in the world. But they also find out that the only way that they can defeat the bear is by working together. They find out that Magma can burn him, and they find out that Ilyana has the power with her soul sword to depossess people and strike the killing blow. So like, they find out how they have to work together in order to succeed, which I think is, you know, that's sort of a perennial theme throughout these coming of age stories, especially, you know, in the X universe. But I think that, interestingly enough, I think even though we don't get a ton of it, the dynamic that I'm most interested in here is the one between Danny and Ilyana, because they're both in that. I mean, you deal with it throughout your life, but especially as an adolescent, those questions of identity and secrets, things that you're holding back from people. And Ilyana, just before this, got outed as being a demon. And so they're all coping with that information, you know, which is especially hard for Rain, who's like this, you know, super Christian fundamentalist, like, who's like, what?
Also a werewolf.
Who's also a werewolf. Yeah, so go fucking figure. Yeah, so this tension in terms of these really big dark secrets that are so essential to who you are, and how do you communicate that to people around you, and how do you find acceptance within your community with those secrets, is a really interesting dynamic, and one that, you know, pays sort of greater dividends down the road, especially. But is you see the beginnings of it there, especially, you know, just in the first couple of pages of 18, you know, because Ilyana's pissed off because there's stuff going on with Danny and she's not talking about it. So
yeah, and it's a big, I think a big part of the book is the whole deal with Ilyana, also known as Magic, that she is a demon. So the team is kind of, while trying to, you know, solve this demon bear incident that's occurring, they're also dealing with, we have a demon on our own team, and what team is she playing for? Yeah, exactly.
Right.
So
they've all just come back from limbo right before this too, so they're all like, wait, so there are other realities and there are actual demons and you're one, and yeah.
Right. And before we keep going, I guess we should actually mention who's on this team, this New Mutants team. So we have Ilyana or Magic, we have Rain or Wolfsbane, Cannonball, Sunspot, Magma, and Danny Moonstar.
Mirage.
That is right, also known as Mirage. And I believe they're. I believe all these characters are also in the movie. I don't know, maybe.
Yes.
Yeah, I think they're all there. So, all right, Nick. So, what did you think of this team?
I think they were raw, unseasoned as a team, because I feel like if they would have worked together as a team from the beginning, the Bear wouldn't have gotten that bad. Like if Danny and Magic would have teamed up, they could have beaten the Bear without turning 2 police officers into Native Americans.
Yeah.
I can't get over that. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
No,
I mean, let's talk about that. I guess 'cause
Yeah,
that's a very
There's
strange
no
thing.
reason for it.
There is no reason for it, and it's a choice that they stick with.
Mhm.
Like Corsi and what's their nuts, they stay that way. They like
Right.
wind up on Muir Island, and like it's such a
Wait.
strange choice.
Eric, you're telling me those 2 police officers who were turned into
Was it-
Native American are further used in the comic series?
It was a
Yeah.
nurse, in it.
Nurse, yeah,
Yeah,
Corsi's
nurse in
a-
it.
yeah,
But
yeah. They continue on.
there was some talk of maybe getting Doctor Strange to reverse it, but I
Right.
guess it didn't work.
They actually, in the next volume, they go on to create the Washington Redskins, and now there's a whole controversy.
But that's a choice that I still struggle with in this. Like, I'm not sure what prompted that choice and why they decided to stick with it too. Like at that point,
I mean, the story is relatively heavily Native American based. You know, you have Danny that's a Cheyenne Indian, and they kind of have that. She has the war paint, so it kind of has that roots where like that was like her pure power, like that was like the soul state of everything. And then they kind of tie it together with the fact that, like, you know, in the bear, in Native American culture, it has that significance of the bear is strong and powerful. It's a prideful animal, and they respect the bear. So the fact that the bear was more of a demonic evil sight, it was like they tarnished the beloved beast that they cherished. So,
but it's also problematic because it's aligning a representation of indigenous with being demonic. Like they only turn that way after being demons, and that's the thing that gets left behind.
Right.
So like, what are we trying to say about being indigenous? Like,
Now, what I will add though is your co-leader of the team, Danny. She's Native American, so you do have one of the first Native American team leaders ever on a superhero team.
And interestingly enough, because she's with Sam Cannonball, and interestingly enough, they have the same sort of dynamic that Cyclops and Storm did, you know, around, you know, whatever it was, issue 200 when Cyclops left and Storm took over, but they flipped the gender on it. Instead of the male being like the tactician, the combat war guy, it's Danny, and Sam's like the heart of the group. He's the one who's always like worrying about how everybody's feeling, and he's like the big brother. I'm gonna go make sure everybody feels good, you know, kind of guy. He's such a good boy.
Quick to react, yeah. Very
so
emotional.
that's another sort of plus in their book that they do upend some of those paradigms, but then they fucking drop the ball and kick it across the ocean on other things.
Yeah.
Now, if I'm not mistaken, when Danny's father, spoiler alert, when Danny's parents get released from the curse of being the bear, don't they kind of touch upon why Officer Corsi and Nurse, I forgot her name, Furlander or something like that. But doesn't he explain that like they're returning to a previous form before they were evil, which happened to just be Native American?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying about like the alignment.
So are they necessarily saying that the evil like that's their purest form, and then when they had a degree of evil in them, they became kind of what we associate as white America? So maybe there's a little touch of racism.
I'm out. I don't know. Not getting
So you're saying
trouble.
that as the tainted version of their souls, they were white, and as their
Even though
pure
necessarily they weren't bad people as a police officer and a nurse, but like their purest form and their natural like state were Native Americans. So maybe
yeah, I mean that's interesting because like the like that little like heads up display that you get in issue 20 where it's showing the the view of the nation from 20,000 feet or whatever.
Right.
Like that's supposing that they're in a world that's untouched by white colonialism. But then but the demon is the one that's like tainting this land. So it's hard to read anything that the bear touches and the transformation for it as being good. It's like, so that's why I have that, like, I totally hear you, but I have that big stumbling block of like, I don't know.
Yeah, it's definitely a point of contention.
Hey, does anybody have Chris Claremont's number? Let's give him a call.
Yeah, right.
Next time I see him, I actually do want to sort of put the fire to his.
Yeah, there we
his
go.
feet.
I was gonna say, guys, Mohawk Storm looks good.
Oh, that was pretty cool. She looked awesome.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I would say Mr. Claremont gets 1 point for having a Native American leader and 1 point for 1 point deducted for that whole Native American
For questionable
of
transformation.
transformation. So you're even right now, Mr. Claremont. All right. I know, Justin, we never really got to ask you your overall impression of this X team. Before we move on, would you like to throw it out there?
Yeah, no, I think they meshed well, and I think it was really cool how like you kind of saw them grow a little bit. Like they were a little bit of self-aware, like when they said like we have to make necessary sacrifices at some point, and it was kind of like you understood the power, like the strength of what your power entails. Like okay, yeah, like if we do have to act upon this, like there are going to be some casualties in the end. But then you got that reinforcement where like they kind of were unsure if what they did was like sufficient, and then you had Professor X come in and he's just like, listen, like there's going to be collateral damage and I'm proud of you guys. So it was great to see how like they were in tune to like, wow, we have a lot of responsibility behind our powers, but they understood what they were encompassing. It was pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah, overall, just like you said, I think you covered it. I think Eric covered it. Nick covered it. They're just very green team. I enjoyed it a lot. Why? Nick, did you have a question before? I saw you raise your hand.
No, I just wanted to say that Mohawk Storm looked good.
That was all right.
Bringing it back to the Nick.
That's my when you guys talk about colonialism, that's my contribution right there.
Right.
Which we can read all kinds of things on that.
Hey, I'm not getting in trouble.
We can get you in trouble.
Yeah, right.
Like, yeah, I said nothing.
Yeah, my overall impression actually before we move on of this team, I think I said it earlier, they're just young, they're brash, they're cocky, but they're also very unsure of what they're doing. All right, so we also just really talked about what we were going to get to at the end, but overall thoughts again on the spiritual and horror aspects of this story. So if anybody has anything left to add, why don't we bring it to that? And also, is there any particular reason we picked this book? Anybody want to hit that?
I think that's
That would be
Eric,
you, Eric.
Well, why don't you all field the horror question first?
We'll do the horror, yeah, and then we'll bring it down to you. So let's go ahead and hit up the overall thoughts of the spiritual and the horror aspects of this story. Mr. No Comment, Nick, how about you lead us off?
I think Eric said it best. When you could add some different storylines to a superhero comic that isn't just I'm a villain, I want to take over the world, bad guy, fight. Honestly, I'm just a fan. Like if the story's done well, I like it. I don't care the themes or anything like that. I thought it was done well.
Yeah.
Definitely started slow. I was a little skeptical with issue 18, but 20 made up for it.
And and I think that's kind of expected because 18 is building the world for you, but it's also the first time that you have the two creators working together. So there was a lot of things in that book I think that needed
Yeah, I had
time
no
to.
familiarity going in, none at all with New Mutants. So that's why it was my idea to form Cocktails and Comics to read some different stuff. So thank you.
And there's definitely
There
some detritus in issue 18 that definitely doesn't need to be there. You know, like they're setting up all the Warlock stuff. You know, in the
the early Warlock stuff was like what?
Yeah, and it's like, you know, I don't know that we needed to have like 3 pages with Starjammers. You know, like and all the stuff with Rachel. You know, right at the very beginning is just so it's completely inconsequential to anything in New Mutants. It's Claremont just being like, hey guys, so you should go buy this other book because there's this thing going on. Like, it's visually interesting. It's cool to see Sienkiewicz drawing Xavier getting shot the fuck up, but like has no bearing on this story at all.
And you know what? And to defend Chris Claremont, because as soon as I started reading on like the Starjammers and everything, I was kind of like, what the hell is this? And I started looking into it. And thankfully now in 2020, I have Google, so I can start Googling into it. And I say, all right, there's like some sort of, but back in 1984, I would have to go to my local comic shop and I would have to start buying some stuff. So, I mean, it was very, very good marketing tactics.
Well, yeah, because if you're just looking at that, and you're like, who the fuck is this binary chick? And you're like, oh, that's Carol Danvers? What happened to her? Oh, she's Miss Marvel. Wait, what? So like, and then you go down the rabbit hole and $40 later.
Right. 1984, that was a lot of comic books. That was like at least 40 books.
Now it's like 3.
Sad but true. Now I'm sad. I'm done. No. All right. Actually, since Eric, why don't you let us know a little bit about what you thought of the horror / spiritual aspect?
Yeah, I mean the spiritual stuff. You know I don't think Claremont's pretending to actually be tapping into any true, you know, Cheyenne mythology or anything like that. This is sort of through his lens, you know, armchair folklore, I guess.
Very shallow dive.
Yeah, so it has the whiff of, you know, indigenous spirituality. I can't speak to how, you know, what the veracity is of any of this really, but I think it works in terms of you know, Danny's personal journey. You know, that she's struggling with this power that draws these terrible things out of people, and she accidentally pulled this image out of her parents' mind and set them down a path that was destructive, and so she's struggling with that. Whether that has any grounding in actual, you know, mythology or spirituality or religion is sort of irrelevant. You know, it's true to her faith center and her sense of family and spirituality. So so that's intriguing and I think true to that character. And you know, with Rain's sort of very Judeo-Christian background, there's sort of tension throughout all these things because you know, there's Ilyana being a demon, there's Magma being from a, you know, proto-Roman civilization in Brazil. Like, there's a bunch of weird, you know, backgrounds and spiritual, you know, confluence happening here. So in terms of the horror, I think it's a ballsy move, and I feel like we didn't see a lot of horror from the X books until this time. Anything that was sort of horror adjacent was really campy. You know, like I keep thinking of like the X-Men annual when Storm gets seduced by Dracula. Like, it's like such fucking like ridiculous camp. It's so.
Was that also a Sienkiewicz book?
It is, yeah. Ironically, doing basically as close to house style as he can with all that. But yeah, so I think I enjoy the fact that they went as far as they did, and especially in the book that's starring kids and sort of geared more towards younger audiences. And I think that they, again, with the way that Sienkiewicz drew it, they just knocked that horror genre out of the park.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think the horror aspect really works just because of the setting. Hospital, snowstorm,
Yeah, it's
hours out.
absolutely archetypal horror stuff.
Yeah. And in terms of for me, the spiritual aspect, again, like you said, I think it was just like a baseline knowledge, and let's throw out some demon spirit, and let's have some Native Americans. They didn't do anything that was offensive, but
Did they?
maybe just
I
a
don't
little.
have to think.
But yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I think both of them definitely added to the book. I think both of them definitely added to the book. I think it was definitely a change, something different, and it was like, hey, listen, we can take books this way, and what better way than to try to attack it than a spin-off book, you know? If it failed, Chris Claremont still had his X-Men title. So, you know, if he loses the New Mutants because he tried something new and it failed.
Chris Claremont.
Yes, Chris Claremont. Sorry, guys, I'm drinking IPAs here. Give me a minute. This one's dank.
No, that was great.
When you start drinking whiskey, then we can talk.
This one is ridiculous, by the way. So,
You guys know Stone Cold made his own IPA?
did not.
Yeah.
All right. So, Justin.
I'll drink it if someone throws it to me.
Yeah. That would be amazing.
I don't. I'm not. I feel like I will refuse to drink that out of principle. I feel like he should only be able to make malt liquor. Like that's the only thing Stone Cold can fucking make.
Right. If you're gonna drink it like that, it's got to be malt liquor. Like if you're gonna pour it all over yourself and splash it in
the shittiest of lagers.
Guy.
What was that?
He's a Budweiser guy.
I know. Yeah, that's why I said the shittiest of lagers.
My favorite's when he came in with the beer truck and like
that was it.
like, douses. All right, Justin. Do you want to? I guess finish us off with the spiritual and horror aspect. Yeah.
You guys have pretty much encompassed everything that the series has. I mean, if there's one thing that I can touch upon is that I wish that I was more exposed to New Mutants to really get that shock value of seeing, you know, this whole arc. And I mean, Eric, I want to thank you for introducing me to this. This is awesome. And by reading this, it makes me want to read all of the earlier stuff. Even though you said this may be the most, like, you know, the most canon, like, you know, the only must read out of the volume 1. It's like I kind of want to expose myself to the earlier works just to see why this has that shock value. Because reading it just raw as I did, it gave me that shock value. And I had no background into it. So I was like this must have been so mind-blowing for the time. So, I mean, it definitely resonated very well. I loved it.
Yeah, it was an excellent choice. So, with that said, Mr. Eric, would you like to end our discussion with any last topics, anything you want to hit on, any notes, or even why you picked this series?
Well, yeah, I mean, the reason why I picked it was precisely sort of what Justin said there, was just how this became a high water mark, I think, for what superhero books can do, and how that synthesis of writer and avant-garde artists can come together to make something that works on so many different levels, and just how that changed the game, and especially for somebody reading it at a younger age, and sort of who was just raised on like Fantastic Four, and you know, as sort of outside the realm of reality as you got, it was like Thor and like whatever, but then to have this, you're just like, oh, okay, that's like makes little 8-year-old minds go. So this, you know, New Mutants is one of my favorite books. I think. Yeah, I was gonna say of all time, and I was gonna qualify that with of Marvel, but it's probably one of my favorite, and this is my favorite run of that book. So just wanted to share the love.
Well, thank you for sharing. And I have a question for you. Is it true that in some form, either whether it be first print or second print, you own the entire volume 1 of the New Mutants run?
Ew, I finished it at Comic-Con last year.
Nice.
And you all were witness to me nearly wetting my pants when I realized that Sienkiewicz was actually at his booth when I thought that he wasn't going to be.
Not lying. He actually wet his pants.
That's when I got this book. Because I remember Eric was like, oh man, I don't think I have anything. And I'm like, I do. Will you sign this? And he's like, ah.
I went running out. I bought the first books of his from New Mutants I could find, and then I came back the next day and got a couple of them, including my first Legion signed by him.
All I remember was seeing the look on your face. First of horror that he was there, and you're like, I have no books. And then when you asked, and you were like, will you be here tomorrow? And he's like, yes. And you're like, yeah!
There's a picture somewhere of me after having just met him. I think, Nick, did you take it? Of me after having just met him, where I was like glowing. Like,
I think maybe. I don't remember, to be honest.
If we find it, we will toss it at the end of this video. just so it's there. Also, in case I put this up before I finish, don't forget, guys, I'm on the quest for 100 subs, which I already reached. But if you act in time, you too can be included in the contest. Yeah.
What do I have to do again?
You have to. Here's what you have to do.
Segue.
One, you have to find an outtake or a blooper from one of my videos. Tell me what video and a timestamp of where I can find it, just so I can laugh at myself. And two, tell me what you like about the channel or what you don't like about the channel. Preferably, I prefer what you don't like, because then I will stop doing it or revamp it. But just a little critique, what you want more of, what you want less of, what you like, what you don't like, anything. And that's it. Just put it in the 100 subscriber video in the comments. And then you have a chance to win a Venom 25 second print wraparound cover by Mr. Ryan Stegman, currently going on eBay for $30 to $35. Plus 2 other books. So, and I'm sure I'm going to be giving it away during a live show. So, with some other stuff. My first live show, by the way. Yeah. All right.
Things are getting real on Cuppo Comics.
What? All right. Well, we got to do something. There's no cons.
No.
I'm really excited for it to take you so long to edit this that it comes out after the live show where you've already done the giveaway.
Right? And this is actually going to be part of the bloopers. And I'm going to be like, find that promo I did that never actually made it out in time for like the next.
You gotta throw in it like a SpongeBob 3 years later.
I actually had an idea for other shows besides Cocktails and Comics.
Well, let's toss them out in the boardroom. But let's finish this off, guys.
I thought we're done.
I didn't finish recording. I didn't even throw the bye out there to the audience. So remember, people, subscribe, like, throw a share out there, hit that notification bell, tell Nick how much he sucks.
I want to put a shirt on.
Yeah, right? All right, guys.
Dude, it's 90 degrees. It's 90 degrees.
So hopefully you enjoyed our view of New Mutants, the Demon Bear Saga. Guys, let's say bye.
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 Yes.
All right. I'm going to stop recording, I guess. If I can find the stop record button. Ah, there it is.
What is your profession?